Ray burns a page from his Bible and uses the ashes to sketch on the wall of a federal jail in Colorado as he observes the guards. His cellmate alerts him to the fact that a prisoner is going to attack Ray in the yard the next day at that same moment. When the moment comes, Ray launches his first attack and swiftly subdues the other two inmates, wounding them badly in the process and fighting like a pro. Ray is taken to solitary confinement right away by the guards, who permit him to keep his Bible there. Ray observes the guards' daily activities, such as their keypad lock usage and smoking breaks, as the days go by. In addition, Ray begins to form tiny balls out of water and toilet paper, which he conceals inside the toilet paper tube. He takes a clear plastic sheet out of the milk container when they offer him lunch. Ray asks a guard for the time one afternoon before beginning to count on his own. A mystery woman parks her car in the prison's lot outside and, as she turns to leave, activates a control to cause it to explode. When the guards rush to get the captives out, they find that Ray has fled. Ray is seen on the fire truck, disguised like a firefighter, taking advantage of the opportunity to flee in a car driven by his companions Hush and Abigail, who set off the explosion. Ray is dropped off at a roadside store where they give him a coin that he may use to phone a specific number or just say, "Showtime." Ray is soon encircled by police and arrested once more, but he doesn't care because his friend Lester is handling it already. Later in the prison, Lester reveals that he and Ray are employed by a government-hired company to breach prisons and reveal vulnerabilities in their security measures. Ray describes how he managed to break out of 14 prisons previously. After examining the design and procedures, he came across an unattended fire garage. In order to be placed in solitary confinement, he deliberately made some enemies. There, he observed that the prison was understaffed and that he was always left alone when the guards went outside to smoke. The day of the escape was then coded in a letter he wrote to his crew. In order to obtain the guards' fingerprints, he also placed the plastic sheet on the keypad. He later found the sheet by placing it inside his Bible. He used the paper balls on the food hatch of the door to prevent it from locking properly and, when the guards were not there, he would hold out his palm to try different combinations until he figured out the sequence. The sheet had given him the 4 numbers. Ray left the building when the guards were outside smoking, rewound the security cameras to hide his absence for a few hours, and entered the fire apartment through the vents just in time to see Abigail ignite the fire. The warden is now irritated but lets Ray go. Ray helps Hush with some computer issues later on in Los Angeles, and then he meets Jessica, a CIA woman, who offers him a job. She reveals that the CIA has established a new prison, the location of which Ray and his group are not allowed to know, but that if he escapes, they would be paid $5 million instead of the customary $2.5. Even though Abigail and Hush are hesitant, Ray decides to undertake it, and Jessica gives Ray a cover ID, a terrorist with explosives named Portos. Ray will speak with Warden Marsh inside the jail, and he will be provided with an escape code. A few days later, in New Orleans, Abigail and Hush persuade Ray to wear a monitoring device that they inject into his arm since they are still concerned about the lack of knowledge they have about this institution. Ray then proceeds to wait to be picked up on the street, but all of a sudden, he is pushed into the back of a van after being tossed down. The masked men search Ray's body as the car accelerates and discover the tracker, so they remove it right away. Ray gets a shot to put him to sleep, and at the same moment, Abigail's and Hush's computer instantly loses its signal. Ray eventually awakens on board a helicopter, albeit with a slight hangover. He sees as another prisoner is physically assaulted by guard Drake, who then stabs the man and tosses him out of the chopper. Drake then gives the order for his soldiers to put Ray back to sleep after realizing he's awake. Ray ultimately finds himself in prison when he wakes up again, but this place is unlike anything he has ever seen. The guards wear black masks to conceal their identity, and all of the cells are made of plexiglass cubes that hang from the ceiling. To keep an eye on the inmates, there's also a massive sphere with a moving camera. Ray is brought to meet Hobbs, the warden, now that he is conscious. Ray offers Hobbs his evacuation code out of concern that this isn't the warden they told him about, but Hobbs doesn't understand what he means and doesn't care. Ray observes how the guards quickly beat up anyone who disobeys them when they are later taken out of their cells for a break. Every door in the prison has a distinctive code that is scanned on the inmates' jumpsuits. At that point, Hobbs appears to be announcing his presence by stating Ray's false identity over the speakers. Ray is approached by some thugs who want to take advantage of the new guy after witnessing another man get punched, but he quickly breaks the leader's hand and punches him down. Emil, a prisoner, orders the others to move aside before they can respond. In an attempt to win Ray over, Emil reveals that he was once employed by Mannheim, a strongman who took from the wealthy in order to aid the underprivileged. Hobbs is not to be informed by Emil that Mannheim is sought, but Ray seems uninterested in Emil's tale. Hobbs chastises Drake for killing the prisoner in the meanwhile, pointing out that many of the people in this place are not criminals, rather, they are just people who happen to cross someone's path. It is also disclosed that he is the owner of Ray's book. Ray spends the remainder of the day observing the convicts' actions and the way the jail is set up. For example, he notes that the Muslim detainees continue to pray even though they are unable to see the setting sun. Ray explains that he needs to enter the isolation area when Emil discovers that he watches everything and remarks that he's the person to ask for favors from. Emil strikes him right away, making him fall, eager to aid, but Emil merely laughs when Ray punches back. Then Ray starts punching Emil more forcefully, and they get into a real brawl until the guards show up and remove Ray and Emil to the isolation section. The detainees are subjected to excruciating heat torture in the tiny metal cells known as isolation rooms, which have blazing lights on the side. Ray searches the box for anything that could help him escape while trying his hardest to bear the pain. When Dr. Kyrie visits Ray a few days later to see how he's doing, Ray tries to ask him questions but Kyrie remains silent. Drake approaches Kyrie as he is leaving and asks to know what they discussed. Ray discovers Kyrie is lying, suggesting he could have a conscience after all. After that, Ray and Emil are led back to the main area, where Ray begins sketching on the table and informs Emil that he will want a piece of metal. Ray also offers to help Emil escape away. Emil then approaches Hobbs and pretends to finally reveal Mannheim's whereabouts. When he gets paper, he wants to sketch a map, but he ends up drawing something really crude. After causing Emil a great deal of suffering, an enraged Hobbs orders his men to waterboard Emil. Emil takes advantage of the situation to steal a metal drain cover. Emil gives Ray the cover later in the common room, and Ray explains Emil who he really is and how he got there. Ray surmises from watching the layout that this prison was constructed underground and that there is a hatch on the box that should allow him to escape. Ray will use toothpaste and heat with the metal cover to induce the steel rivets to crack because the location is underground and the moisture in the air has caused them to rust. In order to get them sent back into seclusion, Emil approaches Javid and insults his mother, inciting a fight. Ray enters the battle after Javid's Muslim gang defends him, and he hides some bread in his clothing. However, they only get to trade blows for a little while before the guards show up to tase everyone. Ray begins working on the rivets once everyone has returned to the heat boxes, all the while covering up his own physical activity. Emil finds it difficult to work due to the heat and his hands getting cut, so he masks his discomfort by screaming whenever he makes too much noise. Ray eventually succeeds in taking out every rivet, hides the surveillance camera with the bread, and taps on the wall to signal Emil. Emil catches the guard's notice as he starts to sob and yell loudly in German at that very moment. Ray takes advantage of the opportunity to eventually unlock the hatch and starts descending a ladder until he reaches a hallway. He chooses to use some pipes to start climbing up because the door is locked, but in the process he breaks a few pipes and tears off some electrical cables by accident. Ray simply keeps moving forward until he comes across another hatch, which he opens to discover the startling reality. This prison is located within an oil tanker ship in the middle of the ocean. He knows instantly that there are guards around, so he ducks under cover and returns through the hatch to descend. He is pushed aside by the leaking water and falls, but he lands safely in the water because the corridor is flooding. Guards race to remove the detainees from isolation as an alarm goes off and the boxes begin to slowly fill with water as well. Ray swims as quickly as he can, and just before the guards arrive, he makes it back to his box despite having to exert a lot of force to move against the water pressure on the steps. Lester responds to Abigail and hushes news that Jessica's payment has been blocked by saying he has already spoken to her, and that all is good. Once the water is removed, Hobbs becomes suspicious after discovering rivets in Ray's box. When he calls, he finds out that Lester has been in communication with him the entire time, and Lester discloses to Hobbs Ray's true identity. Lester requests that he hold on to Ray indefinitely and then asks Hobbs for details about Mannheim, as banks worldwide are vying for his head. After explaining that Emil might be collaborating with Ray, Hobbs gets Lester's approval to break Ray as well. Ray tries to go to sleep later in the evening, but a guard keeps hammering on his wall to rouse him from his slumber, and the guard beats Ray up in the morning. Ray's body starts to get so weak that he can hardly move when this continues to happen every day. In an effort to maintain Ray's motivation, Emil offers him as many pep speeches as he can, and Ray eventually shares his story. He was a prosecutor once, and a criminal he had sent to prison broke free one day to murder his family in retaliation. Ray's drawing represents his child's final recollection. Ever since, he has ensured that criminals would never be able to get away. Ray spends the following 3 days observing the guards' daily routine in an effort to identify any helpful behaviors. He begins naming the guards based on physical characteristics. He has to know where they are in order to begin creating a plan, but when he went outside, there were no markers. Ray gets subtly stabbed by Emil one day around lunch, and Kyrie has to take him to the office for sutures. Ray pretends to be in excruciating pain and stumbles, seizing the opportunity to pilfer a few items off of a tray. The doctor continues to dismiss his queries even after he reminds Kyrie of his promise. Emile hands Ray a pen and some prisoner's spectacles as soon as he gets back to the shared area. Ray constructs a sextant while hiding his hands beneath the table. This should allow them to locate themselves using the stars. Hobbs demands to see Ray after Drake, and he spots strange movements on the security video. Luckily, he manages to conceal the tool before being hauled off to a new section, where Hobbs acknowledges that he knows who he is and that he used his book to design this facility. Ray tells a falsehood, saying he can receive information about Mannheim from Emile, because Hobbs is prepared to abandon him there permanently. Ray informs Emile of the revised strategy after being sent back to the common area. Emile approaches Javid and gives him the sextant later on, when Ray is distracting Hobbs with a bunch of false information, and he promises to help Javid escape too if he helps them. After learning that the others are about to flee, Javid gets in touch with Hobbs, who then agrees to buy his knowledge by allowing him to pray outside as required by his faith. All of this is planned, and that evening in his new cell, Javid uses the sextant to find out where they are. Over brunch the following day, Javid gives Ray his notes, which Ray compiles with information from the novice, the way the toilet water falls, and the weather he felt when he was out to determine they were close to the Moroccan coast. Ray then consumes some clothes powder in an attempt to become ill and be taken to Kyrie's office, where he instructs the physician to visit Hobbs' office and recite a sentence from a specific book on a specific page. Kyrie looks through the book and, with some reluctance, locates the Hippocratic Oath. Kyrie asks the guards to take Ray to his office the following day so he may get checked out. Ray answers that he penned the page, confirming his identity and persuading Kyrie to lend a hand. Kyrie is left wondering how Kyrie knew the precise page. Ray then provides Hobbs with a fictitious place to locate Mannheim, giving them a whole day to flee before Hobbs discovers the truth. Javid meets with Hobbs as part of the plot, and informs him about the impending escape. Hobbs quickly checks the cameras and discovers Ray tapping on the wall of his cell. They find a communication regarding a plot to riot in Block C during transfer after they recognize the Morse code. Kyrie is requesting assistance via coded email in the interim. Javid instigates a disturbance in the common area following the majority of the guards being dispatched to Block C, which quickly devolves into complete pandemonium. Ray, Emile, and Javid dash to take down the few guards surrounding them and seize their weapons while Hobbs tries to force his troops to switch places rapidly. The three escape undetected as the arriving guards begin to subdue the inmates, and also detonate a gas bomb. Ray informs them that they would only have 11 minutes to meet the helicopter-borne rescuers. Ray discovers a security camera as they dash upstairs and shoot a door open, but since the cameras are networked, he tampers with this one to turn them all off. Hobbs initiates the lockdown procedure at that same moment, causing the exit to be locked as the three are about to leave. As the three begin to hunt for another way out, they are soon encircled by guards who start shooting at them. They retaliate right away and dispatch all of the soldiers without delay, but Javid is hurt in the process. Emile and Ray drag Javid as they flee to hide behind another door because more guards are on their way. When Ray discovers that a motion detector has discovered them, he turns it off while an enraged Hobbs taunts him over the speakers. Ray then gives Javid his revolver and orders him and Emile to head for the stairs after deciding he has to locate the engine room in order to turn off the power. When Ray departs, Javid takes Emile's rifle as well and asks him to continue on without him after acknowledging he won't make it. Javid is surrounded by guards shortly after Emile departs as well, and he valiantly makes sure to take out every one of them before being taken out by a covert shooter. Javid gives his final words to his god before being executed when Hobbs discovers him. In the meantime, Drake pursues Ray in the engine room. Ray manages to startle Drake by jumping around and running to avoid his gunfire. Drake drops his gun in the battle, but he draws a knife, and they engage in a hand-to-hand combat. Following a few blows, Drake chokes Ray for a little while before kicking him, which causes Ray to grip his leg in order to subdue him and resume the battle. After trading blows for a few hits, Ray pushes Drake down the steps, killing him. Both men have stolen a few items to use as weapons. The technician is then rendered unconscious by Ray, who then dashes to the control panel and cuts the ship's generators. Emile is able to exit the ship when all of the lights go out and the doors open. A helicopter launches gunfire at that precise moment, striking the ship and landing on the deck, where a few men emerge to engage the guards in gun combat. Emile makes his way to the helicopter, where one of the soldiers has been shot down, by moving stealthily and dodging bullets. Emile tells the pilot to hold off on taking off until Ray takes control of a machine gun and joins the battle, quickly killing scores of guards. Hobbs is searching the engine room for Ray, who is concealed in a water tank. Emile is forced to depart in the chopper with his people as the guards switch back on the ship's systems at that same moment. Ray's tank begins to fill with water, but it automatically flushes itself and throws Ray into the ocean before he can drown. Emile throws a ladder down for him as he swims to the surface right away, but Hobbs and the guards start fire on him as he ascends. Emile hands Ray a gun, and the two exchange gunfire until Emile sustains a shoulder wound. Ray takes advantage of Hobbs' constant failure to hit his shifting target by firing multiple oil tanks, which results in a massive explosion that kills Hobbs. The two are dropped off by the chopper on the Moroccan beach a few hours later, where Jessica picks them up. It turns out that Jessica is Emil's daughter, and that Mannheim is the one who paid Ray to free her father from prison. She also affirms that Lester has deceived her and is unclean. After a while, Ray meets up with Abigail again, who has learned something about Lester. In the event that Ray is not able to escape, he has been offered the position of CEO of the prison program. Lester is currently attempting to flee, but Hush is waiting for him in his automobile and takes him out fast. Lester finds the car inside a box on top of a ship in the middle of the ocean when he wakes up.